Okay, so we are going to start, just to give an orientation for the video, so if anybody's missing this and they need to make it up, or if you need to reference back to it. So we have one square that's 4.5 by 4.5, and then we have 4 rectangles that are 3 inches by 4.5. So we have that. We've drawn a diagonal line across our square, and then we're measuring in 1 inch off of each corner. Okay. Okay. Now at this point, we're gonna just cut into the corners first and make our slot that's 1 inch wide, right? And I'm going to explain how to do that. We need to account for the thickness of this material. Every material is different, and even if you work with the same material, sometimes you really still want to use that particular material. Like if I had a different piece of mat board that Miss G bought, later on, that's a little thicker or a little thinner. Sometimes that happens. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a line right super close, and watch this before you try it, super close next to my diagonal line. And I need to actually straighten that out just a smidgy. It's a little angled. Yeah, that's a little better. Okay, and then I'm going to take my material, one of them, right, and I'm going to put it up against it. Now, in order to make this tighter, because my first sample wasn't quite as tight as it needs to be, I'm going to actually cover up that line. So I'm going to, let me see so you guys can really see this, how I do it. We have it like this. I'm going to bring this over to that line, and instead of showing the line, I'm actually going to cover it up with the material, just cover it up. All right? So that you're not cutting the thickness of the pencil. So there, I've got it just about covered. You want to hold it tight. And then draw a line of the thickness on the other side. So if you're like, what did she just say? I'm going to do it again. So I'm going to come over to the edge right on my diagonal line. I'm going to bring it super close. It is probably a distance of maybe like a 32nd. It's less than a 16th. Okay, and I'm going to draw myself just a little line right alongside there. Again, I'm going to take this material and use this as my measure for my thickness, but I'm going to cover that line up. Just cover it. So when I draw my line over on this side, it looks like that. And that'll hopefully make it super close to the thickness. Okay? One thing you could do too, if you wanted to get really, really precise, you could use your blade to kind of put a little angle on the end of your pencil lead. That's another option. So I'll do it all the way around before I start cutting. That's too far away. Okay. There we go. Alright, looks like I have 4 good marks. That's when I need to put my glove on when I get my blade out. right? So again, it's important that you use these rulers. The reason I ask you to use these rulers is they're stiffer. They're not wiggly, right? They also have cork on the back, which helps hold them to the surface so that you're not sliding around when you make your cut. When you're ready to make your cut, again, you're going to bring this right up to that line. Try to be as precise as possible. You want to have your glove on, and you want to be cutting on the waist side. And again, you want to scrape just a little bit first until you go all the way through. And then you're going to turn it around and do the other side. I think my blade's a little dull too. And then in order to get the end out, it really is just kind of, it's such a short distance in this direction. I usually kind of come in one direction and then I flip it and I come in the other direction to get that kind of corner. And then I come back here and kind of creep right up to that corner and see if I can get the material out that way. Sometimes it takes a little work because it's a pretty tight space. Try to get so there's no fuzzies in there. And then you can test it to the material to see how tight it is. This one worked out better than my last one, so that's a little tighter. I like that. I'm going to make sure that it's all the way down because it still seems a snap fuzzy in there. And then I'm going to do that all the way around. Our next cut, once we have this cut like this, right, we have all four sides out, okay, and just 1 inch in. We're going to make the larger cut in this piece. Let me make sure, I'll focus on, there we go. Hopefully this will focus. So what you're going to notice, again, as I spoke about it earlier, is that this is the larger cut. The other side is a shorter cut. They still equate to the same distance, right? You're just taking a smaller amount. The reason that you do this is because the cut in this is the plane that will be horizontal. So the more you cut out of this, the more unstable it becomes, right? So the reason why you'd want to make a smaller cut out of this is to maintain the stability of this plane in this orientation. So with that being said, if we look off of the corner, we have that 1 inch that we want to go in, and then the rest of the distance we want to take out of our vertical piece, right? And I made it easy math. So this is 3 inches across. We went 1 inch in, so we have a 2 inch cut. And then I also went up, how far? 2 inches. So you could do 2 inches. I might try to do a set of 2 that go in so I can have a little bit more of a locked form to show you guys. So you guys can decide, but whatever you decide, it's got to be consistent. So if you want to just maintain just what I have here, you go up 2 inches and then in 2 inches from one direction. And I'll explain that. So how did I do that? For this particular one, again, I put it on the grid. I made a mark at 1 inch. I use my grid, bring that line up right to here so that I know that that's 1 inch at that point. And then I have my 2 inch line, and you can turn it if that's easier. And at that point, at 2 inches over, again, I create a line using the grid so that I know that it's perpendicular. From there, I take my material once I have a line and do the same thing I did before, where I take that material, I cover up the line, and then I draw with a pencil line that thickness on the back. And so then you end up with a little slot like that. Okay? I'm going to try this and do a slightly different measurement, but I'm going to have you guys make your decision on where you do it. So the one thing that is fixed is this 1 inch line. So I am going to draw 1 inch in from the end. Okay. And then I think I'm going to, let me see. I have 4.5 inches. I think I'm going to come in 1 inch off of either side. So I'll make a mark here. I'll start with my line. And then I'm going to do 1 inch off the top side. Using that grid to make a perpendicular line is super important. Now, once you have the line that you're going to cut against, again, you just take the material. You want to have that line, cover it right up. Just cover it so it's right on the mark. Because this is a longer distance that you're cutting. And then really carefully draw where you're going to be cutting out. I'll flip that around, do the same thing, because you don't have to do 2. I'm doing 2 as an example. You can just do 1 because that's the material you have. Okay? And now I have my 2 that I'm going to cut. One thing that you want to make sure is that if you're cutting on the top side of the line or the bottom side of the line, that you're consistent with all 4 pieces so that they're not slightly wonky. Does that make sense the way I said that? So, like my first line was on the bottom side right here. So guys, I need you to hold off your conversations and please listen. So this is the line that I made using the grid. And then I put this piece up against that line and made my mark. So it means I made my mark above that, right? So every other piece that I use, I should do the same method so that, because if I made one below and one above, then they wouldn't sit with the same distance. It's a small distance, but it'll matter, okay? And then we'll cut all of these. Again, we cut the same way. You want to wear your glove. You want to line this up precisely. Yeah. The one with 1. Yeah. And if you've already marked it, you can just do one side. That's fine. Yeah. I'm doing 2 because I want you guys to see what it looks like when it locks. But it's a lot more joinery. So it really matters that you get it right on this one because it's a long distance. So if it doesn't slide in because you didn't cut it right, it makes it difficult to adjust. It's hard to do just a little bit more in this material. Some materials you can do that, but not with this one. Once you do one, test it to see how it works. So making sure that it fits in, it's great. One of the things that's happening is I'm getting just a little bit of distance right here that I could go a little deeper with my cut. That's easy to adjust. So you can just go a little farther with your cut if you want to make that fit. But that's a small thing. This one actually fits really nicely. This is good and tight. My other ones over here are a little looser, so they're good. They're not bad, but they're a little looser. So as you do this, the more you do it, the tighter it becomes. Okay? All right, so I'm going to cut the rest of these, so I'm going to pause the video.